Well, hey, y'all. I'm super excited to be here with you. I'm Michele Molitor. And just for being here today, 5 lucky winners. We're going to have a raffle for a book bundle. So you're going to get a copy of my new book and the journal that goes with it. So be sure to stay tuned. We'll be sharing those with you via email, but stay through the whole call because I know you're going to love it. We got a lot to cover. So are y'all ready? You ready to get going? Okay, well, let's just dive in, shall we? Oops. I suppose it would be really helpful if I shared my screen. Ha! This is what happens when I get too excited. Uh, okay, let's try that again. So good, wasn't it? And perfectly flawsome. Okay. All right, can y'all see that? Give me a nod or a thumbs up. Okay. Now are you ready to go? Okay, fantastic. I love it.
Superdome. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's
So who else here would like to feel this level of confidence every day of the week? How many of you want to feel the power that Beyonce just exudes all of the time? But how many of you actually feel more like this more often than you care to admit? Anybody? Yeah. So this bowl represents you on your very best day. And this bowl, broken into pieces, might just be you on all those other days. Hi, I'm Michele Molitor, and this is going to be the most perfectly flawsome conversation you're going to have all day because we are all flawed and awesome. So let me ask you, have you ever been situationally confident? In some situations, you're fierce and fully self expressed, yet in others, you hold yourself back, caught in a swirl of confusion, of self doubt, and maybe even anxiety, which keeps you from playing full out and is hurting your career or your effectiveness as a leader. Perhaps you've even felt like part of you is cracked under the pressure or broken into 1,000 pieces from the stress, causing you to silently suffer, leaving you feeling like you weren't enough in some way. And when we feel broken or not enough in some way, it's hard to walk in your power, let alone stand in your confidence or speak your truth. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. So imagine for just a moment, how would you move through the world differently if you weren't concerned about being judged by anyone? If it didn't matter if you weren't at your absolute best today? Imagine if you could just relax fully in your skin and just be you. What would life be like from this place? You could stop walking on eggshells if you didn't have to be perfect in some way, shape, or form. If you could walk in your power with flossom confidence. How much time, energy, peace of mind would you have to give to other things that are more important to you, like your family, your passions, your purpose? What's possible from this perspective? Fierce confidence that exudes from every cell and fiber of your being. Joy, I would even dare say. That's what's possible. But life shows up, right? Have you ever been called out on the carpet? Singled out unexpectedly, or worse, bullied by someone at work or at home or even school at some point? Anyone else here like me who's ever been caught like a deer in the headlights? Whoop, right? And your brain freezes, leaving you with no words. It happens to the best of you, happens to the best of us. So let me tell you about Adam. Adam, once upon a time in my former career as a creative director working in Silicon Valley, he was a coworker of mine. Technically, I was his boss. And one day he got all up in my face with hateful words that really don't need repeating. He did this in front of my whole team too, shaming me publicly, leaving me with a flood of emotions. I felt like I had been bowled over by his words, stunned and shocked, thinking to myself, what did you just say to me? There were 1,000 things running through my mind in that moment, but no words were coming out of my mouth. And then I realized everyone was watching, making it 1,000 times worse. It was humiliating and demoralizing, leaving me with a massive case of imposter syndrome and perfectionism and corporate PTSD. Has this ever happened to you? Just raise your hand or give me a thumbs up in the chat, letting me know, like, oh, yeah, that happened to me. Later, I thought, who talks to anybody that way, let alone their boss, right? And it took me a long time to even be able to talk about this without getting triggered. But I decided that my mission was bigger than my fear. My mission to help women walk confidently in their power today and every day. Now, you see, in that moment when Adam got all up in my face, my amygdala hijacked my brain, like two little almond bits in the deep parts of your brain. Let me introduce you to our dear friend Amy. Amy G. Dalla, she's your amygdala. She's that fight, flight, or freeze mechanism in your brain, that little lizard lady living right back in here, right? And her sole purpose is just to keep you safe and alive and on the planet. That's all she wants. Yet, Amy rendered me utterly speechless that day, while all the confidence I thought I had drained all the way out my feet, filling me with fear and anxiety and a flood of self doubt, leaving me spinning in a cloud of confusion. It was a horrible moment, one that I will never forget for a lot of reasons, but most importantly, because it changed the trajectory of my career and I didn't even realize it at the time. You know, if you've ever been bullied, how terrible it feels. The rejection, the fear, the anger, the frustration, the helplessness. Anybody else? Yeah. Well, today we're going to be talking about walking in your power, transforming that toxic perfectionism, that PTSD into blossom confidence, helping you to take back your power from Amy, from your fears and doubts that might just be causing you debilitating perfectionism. Because Amy's just technically trying to keep you safe. Yet perhaps she has silenced your voice. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I'm not a perfectionist. Well, I didn't know I was either till I realized I was. So you might be a stealth perfectionist or a sloppy perfectionist. So keep listening and let me know where you're at by the end of our chat today, right? And at the very least, you'll gain some more insights and compassion for those around you who do suffer from it. Sound good? So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Michele Molitor. I'm a master coach, clinical hypnotherapist, speaker, and co-author of the best-selling book, I Am Perfectly Flawsome. And as we mentioned earlier, we're going to be raffling off 5 copies of the book and the journal, so please stick around for that. But I have to tell you, though, that it was really a winding road to get here. After getting bullied out of my high-tech career, thank you, Adam, my confidence was crushed and I was left with an unnerving case of imposter syndrome and perfectionism. Literally terrified to hand my resume to anyone. And that catalytic event left me feeling so much shame, I could barely talk about it. And to make matters worse, the day I got let go, I called my mom on my way home to tell her about my really bad day. And Mom, I lost my job today. And she was like, wow, I'm really sorry, honey. Our friend Al is dying. And in that moment, my whole world flipped upside on its head. So what? I was losing my job. My dear friend was losing his life. And just a few days later, The phone rang early one morning, my dad calling to tell me that Al had passed away. And it broke my heart. It still does, actually, because Al didn't have to die. He could have taken the cocktail of drugs that would have extended his life. But he was too afraid, too ashamed to be who he was, a gay man in a small town. He was too afraid to live his authentic life. And so he allowed himself to slip away. So I decided in that moment on that day that I had to put my big girl panties on and figure out what I was going to do and get on with doing it, just to honor him, my spirit above, and to do the work that I'm here to do. And the perfect storm of that day ultimately led me to discover the power of coaching and hypnotherapy to help me release my fear and my anxiety and my self doubt from my own nervous system. And yet, in the process of that, what I unexpectedly found was my passion, my purpose for helping others reclaim their confidence, to reclaim their voice, to become unshakable in all aspects of your life and career, to finally release the quiet suffering, the anxiety, and the toxic perfectionism from your mental and emotional habits. Because wouldn't you agree that life is too short to live from a place of fear? Yeah. So today we're going to be having a conversation on how to release some emotional junk from your trunk to stand tall in your confidence and walk in your power like Beyonce girls, right? Embracing your flawsome self, because we are all flawed and awesome all at the same time. We're all human, let's face it. I think we probably all have a little bit of emotional junk in our trunk. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. So today, over the next, I don't know, 35 minutes or so, we're going to be learning how to liberate yourself from toxic perfectionism and anxiety and self-doubt. As you realize that you're not alone, we'll identify what's at the root causes of it. We'll debunk the number one myth around failure and discover 7 steps for leaving perfectionism in the rear view mirror. And I'll give you a quick exercise too to help you start to change your mind as you empower yourself, embracing your flawsomeness, and learn how to weave it through all aspects of your life so you can live authentically. All right? And then we'll have some Q&A at the end. We'll answer all your questions too. All right? So, who here has heard of kintsugi? Anybody? Yeah? It is the Japanese art and philosophy of golden repair dating back to the 15th century. Those Japanese, they know some things. This art form takes broken pottery, putting it back together, then painting the cracks with gold dust, making the mended piece more beautiful, more valuable than before. Treating the breakage and repair as part of its history rather than something to disguise or hide, right? So today we're going to embrace these principles on your path to becoming a practicing Flawsomist. So raise your hand if at some point in your life or career you've ever felt less than, maybe not good enough, perhaps not worthy or deserving of the success that you have earned. Well, you're not alone. We are all perfectly imperfect with good days and bad days. I know, I used to feel this way too. Getting knocked out of what I thought was my dream job, that corner office that I had worked so hard for. I felt like I had been shoved off the .com bus without warning. Yet it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, a rising from the ashes kind of moment, because that perceived failure cracked me open, helping me discover a whole new set of skills and talents I didn't even know that I possessed, and a joyful career that I had never even dreamed of. So imagine what's waiting for you on the other side of healing your cracks and wounds. The wound is where the light enters you, Rumi. You see, we all have cracks and wounds within ourselves. Many of them are healed, some maybe not quite yet. However, when we can learn to mend those cracks and wounds with gold, with self love and value and worth, to stand in our inherent dignity, to walk in our power and speak our truth, then you can expand your confidence, sit more comfortably in in your skin, more authentically, more naturally, and you will feel empowered to shine more brightly and share your unique genius with the world. And in the process, reducing the silent suffering of stress and anxiety and depression that truly has created a mental health crisis in our country. So, would that be a value for your career, for your life? I I know that I have some cracks and wounds from my life, right? Anybody else? Why do you think I do this work? We're all here to help heal ourselves and help others on the way. So, who else here might identify themselves to some degree or another as a perfectionist? Maybe a little bit of a perfectionist, maybe a lot a bit of a perfectionist, maybe an uber amount of perfectionist, right? For all my uber perfectionists, I love you. I feel you. I like to think of myself as a recovering perfectionist. Now, I know this is a room full of amazing women, high performing professionals with excellent standards of delivery. But did you know that sometimes, just sometimes, that those high standards of striving for excellence can cross over the line into toxic perfectionism? Yeah. As a matter of fact, research shows that 92% of people are affected by perfectionism. And because of social media, this is even severely impacting our kids. 25 to 30% of teens suffer from maladaptive perfectionism. Those are frightening statistics. For example, I'm currently working with a 14-year-old who has performance anxiety, causing her severe panic attacks. She said to me, "Oh my God, I felt like I was going to die and I was going to throw up." Her body would go numb, like she couldn't feel her fingers and toes anymore. Right? So it's important to remember that kids are always watching and unconsciously adopting the behaviors of the adults around them, which can have a far-reaching impact. Now, it's all unconscious, right? So don't start beating yourself up. That's not the point here. All right. Furthermore, studies have shown that women do tend to experience higher levels of socially prescribed perfectionism, more so than men, especially in the areas of appearance, relationships, performance, and academic achievement. Three findings from a 2022 study with more than 1,400 participants drive home this impact. Nearly 47% of women believe that failing at one task or project makes them a failure as a person. Similarly, 48% of women said they needed to be perfect in perfect physical shape to, to be considered attractive. And our own survey that we did for the book shares some other troubling gender gaps. 85% of adult women that we surveyed felt they had to be perfect in some way, shape, or form. Those are astounding to me, right? So let's define what perfectionism is. According to Webster, perfectionism is to make something completely free from faults or defects or as close to such a condition as possible. Lawlessness, right? But is perfectionism really attainable? Or is it something fabricated by the mind to keep us constantly striving for that perfect idea that's just out of reach? Perhaps this is what makes us better, right? Or perhaps it just makes us exhausted, right? I don't know that anything is 100% perfect. Do you? On the surface level, it may look perfect. But if you dig a little deeper, you're bound to find a few flaws. You see, perfectionism becomes the culprit that prevents us from trying new things, which can lead to procrastination, causing anxiety, as well as crushing negative self talk, all of which are confidence killers. Yet, wouldn't you agree that one of the gifts of imperfection is truly embracing that perfection is in the eye of the beholder, right? It is our varying perspectives that make us unique and life interesting. Sadly, we live in a world filled with judgment and critiques. Everyone has an opinion these days, right? What I might think is exquisite beauty in the perfection, like the sunlight lighting up the bright fuchsia feathers on the hummingbird's throat, you might think, "Psh, what's the big deal? It's a bird, right?" But I believe that we would be far better served by looking for the beauty that lies within the imperfections of life, the imperfections within each person that you meet, that you work with, especially the imperfections within yourself, ladies. This would give us such freedom from constantly trying to be better than, instead of just being who we are, fully, completely, authentically, perfectly imperfect blossom, just as you are and just as you aren't. Because if you believe like me, from this Flawsome perspective, we make room for greater acceptance, belonging, and connection in the workplace, helping us individually and collectively to foster greater dignity and respect with ourselves and with others. You see, Flawsome perspectives are the antidote to toxic perfectionism and the catalyst for curiosity, creativity, collaboration, confidence. Imagine how freeing this perspective would be for you. What do you think? What do you think is more beautiful and better because of its imperfections? So please type in the chat. What do you think is perfectly flawsome about yourself or your life? Just type in the chat what you think that might be for me. And I'm going to figure out how to look at the chat over here on my iPad so I can see it. If not, maybe Michele, you can read some off to me because I can't figure out how to do that and multitask at the same time. Oh, wait, here we go. Oh, I did it. Look at that. I'm being perfectly flawsome.
Happy to help too, but if you got it, then awesome.
I got it. Okay. Wrinkles. I love it. Um, the closest thing I get to perfection. Yes, perfectly flawed. Fantastic. One of my personal favorites is the one white whisker on my all black cat and my own one white whisker. My butt. Uh-huh. Growing older with grace. I love it. Thank you. All right. So let's bring toxic perfection into a bit more focus, shall we? To see if your high standards of perfectionism have quietly crossed the line into the land of toxicity, either personally or professionally. So I'd like everybody to please raise your digital hands. Everybody raise your digital hands. I want to see all the hands go up, right? Put all those hands up because I want to create a visual here of all of the hands going up. There's a method to my madness, right? So as all those hands are going up, beautiful. I love it. All the different colored hands, beautiful. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here. And for each no answer, I want you to put your hand down. For each yes answer, I want you to keep your hand up. Okay? So note that you might put your hand down and put it back up again as we go through this. Okay? Perfect. All right. First question. At any point in your life, have you ever endured a toxic environment where you were bullied, harassed, or made to feel less than in some way? Leave those hands up if it's a yes, put them down if it's a no. And just notice all the hands. Number two, at any point in your life, have you ever overworked, overgiven to achieve perfectionism to just feel seen, heard, or appreciated? Yep. Number three, at any point in your life, have you ever been riddled with self doubt, feeling not perfect enough or ready enough, causing you to second guess your abilities? Up. And last question. At any point in your life, has toxic perfectionism ever caused you excessive stress, anxiety, depression, or even physical illness? Yeah. So look at all the hands that are still up, ladies. Yeah. Sometimes we think we're the only ones. But can you see the enormity of this issue and its impact on your nervous system? I hope you realize you're not alone here. Yeah. Now, before we move on, I want everybody to sit on the edge of your seat like this. Ground your feet on the floor, and I want you to strike your very best power pose, right? As you stand tall in your confidence, give me a woohoo, give me a high five. All right, that's fantastic because I want you to feel your own strength and resilience in every cell fiber of your being, that you are still here despite all the hooey that you have lived through, all the bullying, all the harassment, all the people who have tried to make you feel small. You are amazing and brilliant and resilient. Yes. No matter your age, your race, your sexual orientation, or even your country of origin, we have each faced these debilitating beliefs and thoughts at some point. It also shows you that you never know who might be quietly suffering with a smile on their face, despite their fears and challenges. And this can be directly tied to addiction, workaholism, depression, and sadly, even suicide. Now, notice how those questions landed for you, maybe what they even stirred up within you. How do you think those old issues are impacting your work, your confidence, even your leadership abilities? Now, if I were to ask anyone what they don't like about themselves, we're sure to get a list of characteristics and flaws that can run the gamut of height, weight, physical imperfections, or the inability to do this, that, or the other thing, right? And these perceived defects or inadequacies about ourselves, such as I'm too short, I'm too loud, I'm too much, I'm not enough in some way, shape, or form, are often the result of the emotional residue left behind from our childhood, right? These false truths and toxic imprints left on our brains were left there by thoughtless or deliberate comments by someone close to us. And these same misconceptions can then overflow into our beliefs, our perspectives, our ideas about others as well, about their ways of behaving or being in the world. All of which creates a cascade of negative dialogue about ourselves and about others. So, for example, this can present itself as someone who is highly critical or judgmental of others, yet thinks they're wholeheartedly right, right? They're got their heels dug in staunchly in their position, absolutely immovable. Have you ever worked with anyone like that? Yeah. Have you ever been a person like that? Remember, this is a judgment free zone here today, ladies. So just notice with self compassion. I know I've been that person before. So, what's at the root of it? What gets us trapped in these flawed ideals and this perfectionistic mindset? Simply put, it's a trauma response. It's a response to having our dignity violated that causes us to go into perfectionistic overdrive as a way to stay safe. Perfectionism can have a variety of root causes that get embedded in your subconscious mind, creating a range of negative drivers and behaviors that can last a lifetime if you're not careful. So let's have a look at those, shall we? Here are some of the most common drivers of perfectionistic behaviors. Number one, nature. Research in the science of epigenetics shows that particular behavioral traits can actually be inherited from our family of origin. Yes, this is science. Turning on or off particular gene traits in your DNA. Like Thomas, who's a second generation Holocaust survivor, constantly hearing growing up from his father and grandfather who fled Nazi Germany, that if you didn't have a PhD, you were merely an apprentice. This caused extreme perfectionism in him for many years until he was able to sort that out. Number two, nurture. Excessive demands of perfectionism from parents, teachers, siblings, or even bosses who are highly critical and shaming or even abusive. True story. Early in my career as a graphic designer, I had a crazy boss who was such a perfectionist. One day he walked in, didn't like what I was creating for a client, and literally blew up, picked up my computer, threw it on the floor, and smashed it. Then proceeded to yell at me right up in my face. And I quietly replied to him, honestly, I still don't know where this answer came from. But I very calmly said to him, Michael, throwing the computer on the floor won't solve the problem. And he stormed off. He was crazy. More of those stories are for another day. Number three, trauma. Childhood trauma, abuse, or neglect can obviously contribute to the development of perfectionism as a coping mechanism to gain control over one's environment and to feel safe. It also leads to other common drivers such as low self esteem, low self worth, feeling inadequate, which may feed the need to be perfect simply to gain the acceptance and approval from others, thinking that their value is only measured by their achievements. Number five, black and white thinking, having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. In a fixed mindset, there are only two options: perfectionism and anything less than, which is absolutely unacceptable. Like Isabel, whose narcissistic mother's abuse towards her as a child left her frozen as a young professional, not able to leave her home and unable to attend company meetings. She had to quit her job. And through our work together, she was able to reclaim her confidence, find her feet again, go back out into the world and find an even better job with a more compassionate boss. Number six, cultural and social expectations. Social media has done an amazing job of creating a toxic compare and contrast culture of others' seemingly perfect lives, leading to the mental health crisis that we're in the middle of in our country, creating an array of addictions, disorders, and suicidal ideation, sadly. These statistics are staggering. According to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health for 2023, 63.2 million Americans aged 12 and older battle mental health challenges, which only adds to the rates of addiction and suicidal ideation. So frightening. And my personal favorite driver of perfectionism, imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon. Considered by experts as similar to a general anxiety disorder, they're divided on whether perfectionism should be counted as one distinct type of an imposter syndrome or merely a specific reaction to it. Either way, it's a fear based disorder, a feeling of not measuring up to some imagined or real standard, leaving you feeling like a fraud, an imposter in plain sight. Perhaps this isn't surprising, but according to our research, we found that imposter syndrome affects 79% of adults and is often the result of toxic workplace relationships or cultures that foster a lack of dignity and respect, which quickly can diminish a person's belief in themselves, their value, and their worth, creating a need to be perfect at all costs. And when our dignity is violated, it actually creates the same fight or flight reaction in our brains and bodies as if we were being physically attacked, according to the MRI research of Dr. Donna Hicks. And it will release cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream so you can fight or flee from that threat. Now, if this barrage on your nervous system continues over time, it can lead to the manifestation of physical ailments as well, such as IBS, chronic migraines, adrenal failure, and the list goes on. So, what's the remedy? Right? Enough of the negative statistics, lady. Come on. What's the remedy? How can we embrace our imperfections to decrease our stress levels, to liberate ourselves from toxic perfectionism and anxiety, and embrace all of our flaws and awesomeness? To walk confidently in your power, right? Well, to become a practicing Flawsomist, of course. But you might be wondering, well, how the heck do I do that, Michelle? Right? But after 23 years of research and practice with folks from all around the world, I have uncovered these powerful insights, right? So here's how to dial down your perfectionism and your self doubt and dial up your confidence, your value, and worth. You start by embracing your failures. Now, you might be thinking, what? I don't want to do that. That does not sound like fun, right? Well, remember, there's no such thing as failure, there's only learning and growth. So let's bust the number one myth about failure so it's no longer an ugly four-letter word. So, the number one myth about failure is that it's a sign of incompetence. Oof. I don't know about y'all. I don't even like to say that word. It gets you right here, right? You're like, oh, hurts a little bit, especially when you say it to yourselves, right? The truth is, failure teaches us things that success can't, right? Research has shown that rather than a detrimental force, negative feedback can be a motivating one when delivered in a constructive form that helps someone achieve new habits or improve existing ones. Let's underline, highlight, circle constructive form, right? You see, a pound fail is really a no, not that kind of moment, helping you to see what doesn't work so then you can find the thing that actually does work for you. It's kind of like dating. You got to swipe left on that failure as you learn from it and keep moving forward, right? So, some famous examples of folks who made it through immense odds and hardships to go on to great success include Oprah Winfrey, Ariana Huffington, and let's not leave out Steve Jobs. Thank him for our phones, right? So now that you're on board, maybe sort of kind of with embracing your failures, let's learn how to dial down that toxic perfectionism even more. These are 7 practical steps that you can start to put into place, right? Empowering you to walk in your badassery and superpowers every day of the week, right? Just like Beyonce, helping you to dial down your stress and your anxiety as you turn up the volume of acceptance, belonging, and connection with dignity. All right. Now, before I dive into these 7 steps, some of these may be familiar to you. Some of them might be just great reminders for you, but they're meant to be put into practice every single day because it's through repetition that you can start to rewire your mind, your heart, your nervous system with these new empowering habits of mind. Number 1, start with self awareness. Just notice what you're doing. Begin by giving yourself some self love, some kindness, some compassion as you acknowledge the perfectionistic tendencies in your life, right? As you start to understand the internal dialogue that you're constantly repeating to yourself, the pressure that you're putting on yourself, you can start to move towards positive change. Number 2, learn from your mistakes. Embrace those mistakes as valuable learning opportunities. Analyze what went wrong, what you could have done better, what you can improve, and then move forward with a newfound wisdom, the knowing that you have now that you didn't have before, right? Number 3, practice self compassion. Please, please, please stop with all the hateful, critical self talk, right? Treat yourself with love and kindness, understanding, just like you would your best friend, especially during moments of failure or imperfection, right? Replacing that harsh, critical self talk with compassion. Your body will thank you as you dial down your cortisol levels. Number 4, set realistic goals. Establish achievable goals that allow for wiggle room or even a wobble from time to time, right? Because we all make missteps. The natural part of learning and personal growth. Number 5, celebrate your progress. Like, celebrate it. Like, really, yes, I managed to do this. I've gotten here. No matter how big or small those steps might be, right? The perfect result is just progress along the way, right? As you celebrate your efforts and your achievements, no matter how small they may seem to be, this naturally gives your brain a mood boost of the neurotransmitter dopamine, right? It's one of your happy chemicals. So the more you do it, the better it feels. And the more it feels, the better you do it. So instead of saying to yourself, practice makes perfect, adopt the mantra, practice makes progress, right? Or better yet, I am perfectly flawsome. Number 6, limit social media. Please reduce exposure to social media platforms that promote constant self comparison. Unfollow the accounts that trigger negative feelings of inadequacy. Focus on your own journey and your well being. Nobody's life is perfect, no matter how picturesque it might look from the outside. You even put yourself on a news diet these days, right? And number 7, incorporate mindfulness and relaxation techniques into your daily routine to help effectively manage your stress and anxiety, to help bring it down. Because as you lower that stress and anxiety, your need for perfectionism will diminish, your confidence will rise. And if you still find you're challenged with your perfectionistic mindset, then be sure to seek some support. Reach out to a friend, a counselor, a coach, or your favorite hypnotherapist who can provide emotional support and guidance to you as you navigate the challenges of releasing the obstacles of perfectionism embedded in your subconscious mind. So, everybody, take a deep breath in. Deep, deep, deep. Breathe, breathe, breathe in. Hold it at the top. And then exhale really slowly all the way out. See, deep belly breathing is always your best go to start to calm your nerves and quiet your mind. So, why are these 7 steps relevant to you? Well, they're the keys to breaking free. You see, the first step is awareness, and with awareness comes new perspectives. And with new perspectives comes positive change. One little tiny flawsome step at a time as you reset your thinking and your habits of mind, enabling you to stretch the edges of your comfort zone more and more as you move through your life and your career with greater confidence and joy and satisfaction. As you allow yourself to just be you, perfectly flawsome and imperfect. Now, I know this sounds simple, but it's not necessarily easy. That's why having support is always a good idea to help you get from where you are to where you want to be faster than you might on your own. Now, you might be wondering, well, that's all great, Michelle, but how do I start today? How do I start to change my mind, change my perspective today to really move forward with greater empowerment, to adopt this Flossom mindset? Well, you start by changing the channel. You start by realizing that the negative thoughts that have been running you are just energy. They are not hard and fast truths about yourself. And then you can step into a place of choice of the thoughts you want to choose into, just like the radio. You can start to harness the power of your mind to become a practicing Flawsomist. So, I'd really love to have somebody come off mute and volunteer and work with me for just a few minutes. Can I get a volunteer? Raise your hand for me. I'm looking over here at my gallery view. Who'd like to volunteer? I promise you'll love this. It's going to change your mind in less than 5 minutes. Anybody? Oh, come on, don't be shy. Kathy, come on, come off mute for me.
Hi.
Fantastic. Everybody give Kathy a round of applause for being so brave and courageous. I promise this won't hurt. So, Kathy, if you could share with me one negative thought that runs incessantly in your mind that kind of brings you down. What's one of those negative thoughts?
I wouldn't say it's incessantly, but I definitely have imposter syndrome at times, and it comes with um, will I fail?
Will I
If
fail?
mhm,
Okay. So, feeling
didn't
like a fraud and will I fail? Does that sound about
mhm,
right?
yes,
Okay. So, now when you think that thought, how does it feel in your body?
sad, and it
S-
feels heavy.
Sad and heavy. And when you feel sad and heavy and you think that thought, I'm going to fail, then what actions or behaviors does that then provoke?
Well, I'm less motivated to actually make changes, and I'm not going to take as many risks. I
Yeah. So
stay
you're
in
going
the
to,
safety.
yeah, you're going to hold back, maybe hide out, stay safe, right?
Mm.
You can thank Amy for that, right? And so when you hide out and you pull back, then how does that make you feel?
Uh, Probably more like a failure, like I'm not getting things done.
Yeah. So it just brings you all the way down the bottom of the pit, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to get out of the pit really quickly?
Sure.
Okay. So if we take that thought, I will fail, I'm an imposter, and we flip it around to its exact positive opposite, what is that thought?
I'm a success is the exact opposite.
Yeah, I'm a success. So when you think that thought, I'm a success, how does that feel in your body?
Um, that feels lighter, maybe
Yeah.
happier.
Yeah. Little
Mm.
lighter, little brighter. And when you feeling lighter and brighter and you thinking I'm a success, what actions or habits does that provoke?
Well, I think more confidence, and then I'm probably more motivated to get things done, which will lead to success.
Yeah. And then how will that feel?
Um, well, I think then I'm probably going to be more successful and I'll be happier.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you get to notice, everybody get to see just the difference in Kathy's energy, just as she was talking about it. Just 2 minutes ago, we were down here in the pit. Ugh, that feels gross. And now she feels a lot lighter and brighter, right? That's the whole idea, is to help you change your mind. Get yourself out of the pit and back on track again. So I have a whole worksheet. It's just a page, right? And if you gals would like to receive the worksheet, just email me, right? And I'm going to just, whoops, oh, there we go. I'm going to just drop my email. Well, you'll see my email at the end. I can't type and talk at the same time. It's not possible. But just email me at michelle@nectarconsulting.com and I will email you the worksheet. Just as my little gift, extra bonus gift here for you today, right? Because it's just that easy to change your mind. We get caught in the swirl of emotions that brings us down and it keeps us from speaking our truth and walking in our power, right? So, in addition to changing your mind, what's one action that you will put in place today, right? Start with self awareness, learn from your mistakes, practice self compassion, set realistic goals, celebrate your progress, limit social media, incorporate mindfulness and relaxation techniques. Just type into the chat, what's one thing that you want to start doing today to move yourself forward with greater confidence, feeling more power, feeling flawsome, right? Just drop those in the chat. I'd love to see. Because I want you to imagine how it will feel as you start to dial down your perfectionism and your tendencies, as you embrace your flaws and your awesomeness more wholeheartedly. How will this new perspective not only enhance your confidence, but all the other areas in your life, your work, your family, your friends, your community, your health, and your well being, right? And as leaders in whatever industry you're in, How can we embrace our imperfections and weave it into the very fabric of our leadership? Modeling for others these blossom mindsets that create greater connection, collaboration, and creativity. So that's your homework assignment to think about that for yourself. What do you want that to look like, right? Who do you want to be as a Flawsome leader? Now, before we end, I have a little poem that I want to share with you. It's really beautiful. It was written by a dear friend and colleague, Tanya T. Bird, Tall Flame Love. And it goes like this.
Surrender to the light, the wind said. No need to grasp onto the edge of what you think is safe. Be open to possibility and presence. Life is yours. Expand your wings, for they belong to eagle. Embrace your now, because God is with you. You bring beauty into everything. Just look around and in the mirror. Love, there you are. You bring life to those that are around you. Be the light, the wind said, and reveal your beautiful ugliness. Let loose its untamable madness and become its silent lover. And in the darkness, embrace the silence as you take your place in the world and allow yourself to fully just be you. Without thought, without judgment, without trying to prove how incredible or wise or talented you are. You are the light. Just listen. Shh. Like the wind, uncontained, unrehearsed, without agenda or excuse, without story. Just blowing and touching the tops of trees while taking refuge underneath the wings of eagle. It's time. It's time.
Isn't it time for you to embrace your Flawsome self? When you learn to fill your cracks with and wounds with gold, with self-love and compassion, then you become kinder, more confident, more resilient from the inside out. And from this place, you're more empowered to create greater acceptance, belonging, and connection with dignity for yourself and with others. And that is priceless. It's time. Thank you, ladies. This has been really wonderful being here with you. So we're going to be announcing the raffle winners via email. So look out for an email from Michele from that. But what questions can I answer for you? We've got a few more minutes left here today.
Yeah, Michelle, we did have a couple come into the chat, so happy to read those out for you. So one of our first ones was, what is the difference between perfectionism and toxic perfectionism? Isn't all perfectionism toxic?
That's a great question. So the difference we like to think is that toxic perfectionism is when it moves into the place of being almost obsessive. It's keeping you from being more engaged in other areas of your life. You're overworking, overgiving, over people pleasing to create things just right versus good is good enough. Close to perfect is good enough. So that's why we call it striving for excellence versus toxic perfectionism, because we all want to strive for excellence, right? But we can never quite reach perfectionism. So when we keep trying to get to perfect and it's unattainable, it has a negative impact on your whole system, right? So it's dialing it back just a little bit so that you're having greater well-being and self-care. Okay? Thanks for that great question.
Awesome.
What else?
Another question we got in was, I am a mental health counselor. I often see perfectionism as a symptom of OCD, which requires exposure therapy to overcome. What do you think?
So perfectionism, yes, can show up in OCD. Again, these are all trauma responses that are coming up based on ways we needed to feel safe in our lives, right? And when it moves into the land of OCD, then it's becoming very repetitive. The neural pathways in your brain have gotten even more hardwired to do that particular thing over and over and over and over again to make sure it's just right. So um, it is important to seek help if necessary, if it's become really chronic, so that you can get the support that you need to shift those thinking patterns and create new empowering habits and neural pathways in your brain that dial that down and create in a more healthy range.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Michelle. And I know we are pretty much at the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and close us out today. But like Michelle mentioned, you will receive an email from DWEN Member Services if you have won the bundle of the book and the journal. So be sure to watch out for that. And just thank you so much, Michelle, for being here today and sharing this information with us. This recording will be posted to the DWEN.com video library soon. And just be sure to check out the DWEN.com video library for just more inspiring content. Our next Member Voices webcast will take place on Tuesday, December 3rd on how to grow with results that count, focus on what matters, and execute with discipline with Connie Sue, president of CDC Synthetics. Be sure to check out DWEN.com for details and registration information. We have some great topics coming up in our Member Voices series, so be sure to watch your inbox for future announcements. And if you would like more information on our Member Voices program or would like to submit your information to become a speaker, please check out our Member Voices page on DWEN.com to learn more. We begin accepting applications once again on February the 4th, so get those applications ready. Thank you for attending, and until next time, everyone. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thanks, everyone. It's been a joy being here with you. I appreciate you very much. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I read my emails personally, so I love to hear from you all. All right. Have a blessed day, everyone. Thank you.